For today, so we already did the review of optical transitions, etc. Then we'll do some bit of absorption and stimulated emission, basically. Okay. Okay. So let's proceed basically. So I already discussed. So in the last lecture, we worked on light matter interaction for hydrogenic atoms. This we just went through. So H total H I can write in terms of H0 plus H interaction, and H0 is just the hydrogen atom. Let's say P square by 2m plus the Coulomb potential. And H interaction, we showed that it had three terms, but one of the terms was zero, so it will be just these two terms basically. Making approximations again, neglect nuclear charge and light interaction, work in the weak field limit so that A square is not important, etc. So H int, I'll only treat some part of it, which is H prime, which is just A dot del, basically term. Okay. And we solve this time dependent Schrodinger equation by treating.
Sir,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah. Go ahead with it.
Sir, in the first approximation, and in the first approximation, you have told neglect nuclear charge.
Yeah.
Where are we doing that part, means neglecting the charge
Oh, because I did
of the
not write the
nucleus?
P square by 2m term of the nucleus, right?
Okay, okay.
So the atomic system is basically electron plus the nucleus. And this I do also when I solve for the hydrogen atom problem. You remember? We solve for
Yes,
only
sir.
the electronic part of the
Electron.
hydrogen atom problem. And later when you go back and include the nucleus, etc., you realize that you can solve for the you can include the nucleus, etc., and it just changes the effective mass by a little amount. No?
Okay, sir.
Like the gravitational
Yes, sir.
problem,
Yes.
right? So sun earth system, etc., I can solve with the sun fixed, or I
That
can
is,
also solve with the sun moving, and it just changes the coordinates by a little amount basically.
it just brings the reduced mass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just brings in the reduced mass. Correct, right? So that is one approximation. And then just like I had this P minus EA, right? So I will also have a P nucleus minus EA, right?
So we are neglecting that term.
We are
That's
neglecting
yeah.
that, yeah. We are neglecting the coupling of light with protons in the nucleus.
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah. So that was neglecting nuclear charge. Okay. And weak field limit is I need not consider this term A square. Okay. But if you have already seen this description, then you can easily include also A square, and it will not change your results by much. Meaning it will give you new terms, etc., which you can analyze. Okay. Okay. So yeah.
Yes.
So this is all we did, right? And then you did approximation 3, which was first order perturbation theory. So of course we can write the time dependent wave function in terms of any given basis of the unperturbed Hamiltonian, etc., and calculate the CKs, etc., right? So the CB dot we calculated explicitly. We just reviewed this also, and then we can go ahead and calculate CB1 T, which we also reviewed just now from previous lectures, right? And CB1 was of this form, minus E by M del omega. So del omega I am writing in terms of understanding the spread, but all the spread and the distribution of the frequencies, etc., goes into A0 omega. So ideally this integration is from 0 to infinity, and 0 because I cannot have negative frequencies. Okay. Okay. And then I had, of course, the phase of e to the power I delta MBA, where MBA was this quantity psi b e to the power I k dot r polarization dot del times psi a. No? And if you use dipole approximation, this will just become polarization dot del psi b psi a expectation value. And inside I had this integral 0 to t dt prime e to the power I omega ba minus omega. And omega ba was omega b minus omega a. So omega a is the initial state, omega b was the final state, etc. Plus I had a counterpart of this, which was the complex conjugate of this whole thing, basically, right? So this we solved, this we just reviewed also, actually. Okay. So any questions till now? So this is just a review of what we did till now, all the approximations and whatever we have. Okay. Okay. Then let's go to absorption, basically. Okay. So when we are considering absorption, we are going to, think of, I had a ground state, let's say lower energy state EA, I had a higher energy state EB, and I will do a transition, vertical transition H omega. So vertical in a sense of increase in energy. So H omega, and I go from EA to EB, basically. And we want to calculate the probability of finding the particle in the state B at a time t starting from state A, let's say. So for time t less than 0, etc., the particle was in the ground state, let's say EA. So either ground state or just it was in the state EA, and after some time it may have gone to EB after shining light. So we just want to calculate the probability. And yeah, so we started from the wave function, etc., we calculated the coefficients, etc. Okay, so the probability of going from state A to B is what I'll call the absorption process, let's say. And the probability of this process is not denoted by this quantity P of BA. So A, so the initial state is always written at the end, basically. So A, so BA implies A going to B, basically. Okay. This is a standard notation in a lot of places, actually. So the second index is always the starting point, and the first index is the ending point, basically. So P1BA is equal to CB of T, what we derived in the last class, mod whole squared, basically. Okay. And since we are in first order perturbation theory, we will call it superscript 1. Okay. Okay. And if I just use this relation, which we have written above, etc., then I need to do a square of this. So this guy into its complex conjugate, etc. Okay. So if you do a square of that, etc., you will find that it will result into this expression, which is half E by M whole square. Again, the d omega integral will remain. So A0 square omega mod MBA omega whole square, and this time dependent function, which is ft of omega minus omega BA. Okay. So this, please try to do this, and I'll leave this as an exercise. Okay. So try to derive this explicitly starting from here, let's say. Okay. 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 So once we have this PBA in terms of these three quantities, so A0 omega square, which is proportional to the intensity, we will explicitly show the optical matrix element. So xi dot del sandwich between B and A states, basically expectation value mod squared, and this function ft omega minus omega BA. So omega minus omega BA, because here we will have, yeah, so in the time dependent integral, we always had this omega BA minus omega, actually. Okay. 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 So now what about this function ft omega minus omega B? Oh, okay. So there's a typo here, actually. Okay. So f of t, and let's say omega bar should have been 1 minus cos omega bar t divided by omega square, or 2 sine square omega bar t by 2 divided by omega bar square. So whatever is omega on the right hand side should be the whole combination omega minus omega BA, actually. Okay. So that's a typo here that I will correct before I upload these notes, basically. Okay. And this function, so ft of omega bar, will always appear in time dependent perturbation theory, etc. It's not specific to this kind of processes, let's say. Okay. And this just follows from the fact that CB will always have this kind of a form, basically. Okay. And whenever HB prime K has a harmonic term, e to the power I omega t, it will combine with this term in this form, and I'll always get this kind of a function in first order perturbation theory. Okay. So this f function, which is sine square omega t by 2 divided by omega square, let's say. Okay. Now let's analyze this function a bit. So ft of omega tilde, where I am plotting this for a fixed t and varying omega tilde, right? Okay. So this is sine square omega tilde t by 2 divided by omega square, right? So what happens when, let's say, omega goes to 0? So that's a question I need an answer for.
2.
It goes to 2 because sine x,
Omega
for
by,
small x, I can expand, right?
yeah.
It becomes x,
It
right? So
becomes,
the numerator will become sine. So sine square omega t by 2, when omega goes to 0, will just become omega square t square by 4, right? And divided by omega square. So omega square goes away. So I'll just be left with t square by 2. Yes or no?
Yes.
That is when
yes.
omega goes to 0. Okay. And what happens when omega goes to infinity? Omega goes to infinity,
0.
Goes to 0.
it goes to
0.
0, right? And what will happen in between?
It will oscillate with decreasing amplitude.
It will oscillate with the decreasing amplitude, etc., as a function of omega. Okay. And that is precisely what I have plotted here, basically. So I start from omega is equal to 0 from t square by 2, right? And it will have a period of 2 pi by t, just from the period of the sine. Okay. And then it will decrease in amplitude, further decrease, further decrease, further decrease, and so on. So after some time periods, it will almost go to 0, basically. That's what will happen. Okay. And t square by 2 is the, let's say, the top, the maxima, and the width of this, let's say, the central peak would be roughly 2 pi by t. So that is another point, basically. Okay. So this function ft of omega has a sharp peak at omega tilde going to 0, let's say, height t square by 2, and width of the peak at this omega is equal to 0 peak, etc., happens to be 2 pi by t, because this is minus 2 pi by t to plus 2 pi by t. So the half width will roughly be 2 pi by t, actually. So this you can show explicitly. So I have written approximately just from this diagram, but you can show that this is not exactly correct. So the peak width of the peak at omega is equal to 0 will be 2 pi by t. Okay. Okay, that is another thing. Then so this thing you can integrate. So ft omega, I can integrate over d omega. And why do I need to do that? Because for calculating the transition probability, if you remember, I had a ft omega, and I will be integrating with a0 omega and so on. Okay. So if I integrate over the frequency, etc., ft omega, then it goes like this. So I can just make a substitution that x is equal to omega t by 2. So I'll get this t, and I'll be left with sine square x by x square, etc. And this integral, you should be able to show that this is just pi, actually. So it goes as pi t. Okay. So the frequency integral of f omega in the will basically give you pi t, basically. Okay. And this is also an exercise, so try to show this explicitly. If not, then we will do this in class, let's say. Okay. Or in one of the tutorials, actually. Okay. Okay. So this is another thing about this function f. Then f also can be related to one of the representations of the delta function, which is explicitly given by this relation. So delta function of x is basically, let's say, limit beta going to 0, 1 minus cos beta x divided by pi beta x square. Okay. Uh, yeah. Okay. And using this, you can show that this ft omega tilde, when t goes to infinity, will be in the large t limits will be of this form. So pi t times delta of omega tilde, let's say. Okay, so slight typo. So a lot of typos today. Okay, so ft pi t delta of omega tilde. Okay, okay, and this last point should also seem obvious in a sense that this sort of looks like a Gaussian, let's say, very loosely, and when t goes to infinity, so the period will become very very small, right? Matlab, so it will almost become very sharply peaked, sort of a Gaussian, etc. Okay, and it will become a sharply peaked Gaussian whose height is t square and the width is pi t, roughly. Sorry, yeah, width is 2 pi by t and height is t square by 2. So if I take a product, then all I will be left with is pi t, basically. So that's what precisely it is, matlab. So I'll get ft in the limit of large t as pi t times delta function, okay, which sort of looks consistent with this picture, and you can show explicitly mathematically also. Okay, so yeah, so these are the important points about this. Now, just one connection I wanted to make. So let's say you fixed the time. Okay, so this function f of t omega ba minus omega turns out to have a sharp peak at omega tilde is equal to 0, or this quantity is equal to, so omega ba is equal to omega, okay, and with a width of 2 pi by t. Okay, and this you can relate to the uncertainty relation between energy and time. So what does this imply? That this implies that there's a width in the frequency, let's say omega of 2 pi by t. So if I do absorption, so the absorption transitions A going to B will occur for energies E A goes to EB plus delta E, right? Where delta E is the width, delta omega. So 2 pi, so h bar times this width basically. So h bar times 2 pi by t, okay? And this is nothing but, sort of the uncertainty relation, that t is the time period during which the transition happens, or during which I am doing the experiment, let's say, right? So unperturbed, so this just implies that the unperturbed energy, so EA is equal to EB plus h bar omega, etc., is conserved up to 2 pi h by t, basically. Okay, or if I just write this t as delta t, duration of the experiment, then delta t is 2 pi h, okay, which is just the lower limit of the energy time uncertainty relation. Okay. And this is another very universal feature of the time dependent perturbation theory, that the first order perturbation will always give you this kind of a energy time uncertainty relation. Okay, so any questions till now? No questions? Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so all that we did is we started from this CB1. So we calculated the wave function coefficient in the last class. We took a mod square of that one term corresponding to the absorption, and we calculated PBA. I did not do this explicitly, but you will do this explicitly. Using this, you can show that it is given by this quantity, and then we just analyze how will this time dependence behavior of absorption look like, etc. Okay, and connected this to the uncertainty principle, connected it to the width of the transitions, and so on. Okay, okay. Now coming back to this probability, let's say, so if I work for a large times, let's say, right? So suppose my t is very large. Okay, if my t is large, then I argued just now that this f function is a delta function around centered around omega is equal to omega ba. Okay. Okay. So using that, I can show that CB1 t is just so this is just rewriting of whatever we just had. Uh, so it's a delta function in the frequency regime. So omega is equal to omega ba, right? For large t. So large t, this peak becomes large, and I'll have a very small delta function, and these amplitudes are almost vanishingly small, right? And that you can also show mathematically. So if this is a delta function, then I can do the omega integral easily by putting all the omega dependencies into omega BA. Okay, so that's all I have done there. And then I just can write it as half of E by M whole square A0 square omega BA. Okay. Times this optical matrix element square times this function now. So the only integral that remains is this minus infinity d omega f of t omega bar. Okay, and yeah, so that's it. Okay, and if I do this integral now, so we just showed that the height of the delta function was proportional to t square by t, and width was proportional to 2 pi by t, etc. Right? So if I just use that relation, that f was pi t times the delta function, etc., then I can immediately write that for large times I have this relation that CB1 of t mod square is pi by 2. So pi came from the f integral was pi t, right? So pi and t is here actually, and the rest of the terms are just this basically. So that's the most simple form in which I can write this probability of transition from A to B. Okay, where A and B are connected by h omega. Okay, so pi by 2 E by M whole square A0 square omega BA times the optical matrix element squared times T. Okay, so what does it say? It says that the probability increases linearly with time. So there's a probability of transition. So the more the atoms are kept in this electromagnetic field, more I will have the probability of transitions. Okay, so then probability doesn't make sense to talk about the probability. Then we can define what is the transition rate. So per unit of time, how many transitions can I do basically. Okay, and that allows me to define a transition rate. So WBA, which is just the derivative of this probability, P1 BA d by dt of mod CB1 t whole square. And this I can just immediately write from this equation which is right above, etc. So pi by 2 E by M whole square. So the square seems to be missing here, a typo. Okay, A0 square omega BA and MBA whole square basically. So this equation which I've written as equation 3 is half, the power of, so E by M whole square, the square is missing basically. Okay, so this I'll correct before I upload this to the Mookit, let's say. Okay, and then of course, so this A0 we can write in more experimentally accessible terms, which is the intensity. So intensity I can control experimentally. I know what intensity light I will shine, etc. So then I can just write A0 in terms of intensity, and recall that the energy density was half epsilon naught electric field whole square, or in terms of A0 half epsilon naught omega square A0 square, and the light intensity is nothing but C times the energy density. So basically half epsilon naught C omega square A square. So using this, I can write down this omega BA, just this relation 3 as 4 pi square by M square C E square by 4 pi epsilon. So the squares of E and M are restored here, and I of omega BA. So the intensity at this frequency divided by omega BA whole square to connect it to A0, and MBA whole square. So this is the rate of transitions basically. Rate of absorption, let's say, single photon absorption going from A to B. And as expected, it is proportional to the intensity. So the more intense light I shine, more number of photons I will have, and I will have more transitions going from A to B directly, single photon transitions basically. Okay. Okay. And yeah, so that's what we generally talk about in terms of absorption. So the rate of transition, etc. And another quantity which is useful is this absorption cross section. Okay, and absorption cross section, you can relate it to this is the rate of absorption per atom. So all our calculation was per atom, etc. Divided by the intensity basically. Okay. Divided by the intensity. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if the intensity goes away, then again there seems to be a typo here. So omega BA whole square, it should be, I think, or no, probably. Okay. Okay. So if the intensity goes away, then omega BA is equal to this quantity 4 pi square by m square into this quantity alpha. So it's not a multiplication. I get a new constant alpha times h square divided by m square omega BA and times mod this optical matrix element whole squared. Okay. And in writing in this form, it is sort of interesting because you get this new constant alpha, which is e square by 4 pi epsilon naught h bar c. Okay. And here all of the constants involved are universal constants. So E, epsilon naught, the permeability, h bar, and C, etc. So it's a new constant for light matter interaction in terms of all the fundamental other fundamental constants, and it has a value of roughly 1 by 137. Okay, it has a name. It's called the fine structure constant. Okay. This will keep appearing again and again whenever you do this QED, quantum electrodynamics also. And roughly, so this was first order perturbation theory. If I do second order perturbation theory, then you will find that, similarly the absorption coefficient will be proportional to alpha square. Third order will be proportional to alpha cube, and so on and so forth. Okay. So this alpha somehow determines your the magnitude of order by order processes. Okay. So if alpha is 1 by 137, then the second order processes is likely to be 1 by 137 times smaller than the first order process. Okay. So if I do experiment, then this effect, the first order perturbation theory effect, will already be roughly 1 by 137 times larger than the second order effect. So I have already captured 95% of the physics here, and remaining 5% is in second order, third order, fourth order, and so on and so forth, at least within this framework of weak field limit. Okay. So does that make sense? Okay. Okay. And then sigma BA, there's another way of interpreting that you can define something called the incident photon flux. So basically the incident number of photons, if you like. Okay. So I take the energy density multiplied by C. So I have the energy flux of photons. I divide it by h omega. So I roughly have number of photons per unit time. That's what I have. Okay. And if I do that, then so this quantity is basically I omega BA divided by h bar omega BA. And sigma BA, you can also say, is the transition probability per unit time, per atom, per photon flux. Okay. And the dimension of this quantity sigma BA is length square divided by time. Okay. So yeah, so that's all I have about the absorption. Okay. So quickly reviewing. So we solved the first order perturbation theory. We took one part of the solution which talks about transitions from A to B. So this picture is useful. So I start from EA, I go to EB. Okay. So I had to take a mod square of the wave function amplitude to calculate the transition probability. I did that. I skipped some algebra. I'll get this expression where I'll get this nice function ft of omega tilde, and ft of omega tilde goes as sine square omega tilde t by 2 divided by omega square. Function looks like this. At the large time limit, it becomes a delta function with the amplitude of pi t. And that property can be used to write the rate of, so the probability explicitly in terms of this expression. So pi by 2 e by m whole square a0 square mba omega ba mod square. So the optical matrix element. So this is the only thing which has the polarization of light in it. So this is epsilon dot delta right, times the psi BA. So the wave functions, etc. So the electronic properties are here, and the light property is also here. Okay, so A is, the intensity of light, which doesn't involve its, microscopic nature, the polarization, etc., etc. A doesn't have the electronic wave function. All of these are constants. Time is a constant. So the electronic properties go into the optical matrix element. The light properties also, the polarization at least, goes in here, basically. And using this, since it goes as T, I can define a rate of transition. And the rate looks like this, equation 3. And the rate now I can write in terms of intensity, I can write in terms of the photon flux, or I can define what is called the absorption cross section, which is rate of energy absorption per atom as a function of, let's say, I omega, and so on. Okay, so that's all I had here. So questions now. So it's a good time to stop and questions. Again. Okay. So yeah. So I just described this process of absorption of light by atoms, basically, right? And essentially all we get is this function f, in terms of which I can write the probability of transition, etc. And this function turns out to be sort of a delta function in the large time limit. Okay. So if you solve it exactly, then you have more dynamics, etc. But in the large time limit, simple case, etc., you get this just as a pi t delta function. Using this, we just showed that the probability keeps increasing of having absorptions in atom, etc. And I just argued that this is just the probability. When you combine this with the quantum statistics, that level B gets occupied once, it will not get occupied again, etc. So that will basically put a natural stop to this process. Okay. Or that is one thing. And another thing is once the level B gets occupied, this is not the only process. There's another corresponding process which is called the stimulated emission. So the B level will also have a tendency to emit a photon and come back to the A level. Okay. And these two, absorption and stimulated emission, sort of tend to be in equilibrium. Rates will be equal to each other, etc. And that is what I'm going to show next, basically. Okay, so let's talk about stimulated emission. Okay. So in this case, we will focus on the second part of the solution of CB1, which involve transitions from EB to EA. Okay, and this, if you remember, just going back to our the solutions, etc. So the first part of the solution we used in absorption was this omega BA minus omega. Okay, and the second part I'll have. Okay, so this is not really a complex conjugate. Sorry, so that's my mistake. So in the second part we had sort of complex conjugate, but here we had a plus sign. So omega BA, omega AB plus omega. Okay. Okay. So we will just use that part of the solution to write again similarly the transition probability. And using the transition probability, we will follow exactly the same steps as we did. So we can write the transition rate. Okay. But now the transition rate is for starting from B and going to A. So WAB instead of the WBA in the previous step. Okay. And that is 4 pi square by m square c. So the same constants, etc., which will form the alpha, or the fine structure constant. So I intensity divided by omega B a whole square. And the optical matrix element is now slightly changed. So instead of being m bar BA, MBA, it is now m bar AB, etc. And the only change is just the e to the power plus IKR went to e to the power minus I dot KR, and psi A and psi B are interchanged. So this is a slightly different notation. It is called m bar actually. Okay. Okay. Now small exercise. So this MAB, you can do integration by parts, etc. so that you act with del on psi A and not on psi B, etc. And use the fact that xi dot k, so the polarization of light and the propagation of light are always orthogonal to each other. You can show that this MAB is equal to minus of MBA whole star, basically. Okay, so their mod squares are identical. Okay. So this I'll leave as an exercise for you to show. And this is even easier to see if you are in the dipole approximation. So e to the power I k dot r is 1. So I just have this psi AB which are interchanged between MBA and MAP, basically. Okay. Okay. So this you can show explicitly. And if these are equal, then the rest of the factors are absolutely equal, etc. And that will immediately give you this fact that omega bar AB, which is the rate of spontaneous stimulated, sorry, not spontaneous, so rate of stimulated emission from B to A is identical to WBA, which is the rate of stimulated absorption from A to B. Okay. And the fact that these two are equal is also consistent with the principle of detailed balance, which says that in an enclosure containing atoms and radiation in equilibrium, WAB bar, rate of absorption should be equal to the rate of stimulated emission for any pair of states AB, actually. Okay. Okay. So I have to be more careful around the boundaries. So for any pair of states A and B, basically. Okay. Okay. And yeah. So one minor point is that we actually derived this fact that WAB is equal to WBA bar, right? Which is like the principle of detailed balance, etc. The only point is that the principle of detailed balance was known even before we had this light matter interaction theory. Okay. So the light matter interaction theory, etc., is 1930s, let's say, no, after the advent of quantum mechanics. So 1927, 1926, 1925, roughly is the advent of quantum mechanics. Let's say in this Schrodinger equation form. Okay. And the principle of detailed balance, etc., already existed before that, via these papers of Einstein and Planck, etc. So these were like early 1900s, etc. So the principle of detailed balance historically was in place even before we had this quantum theory of emission absorption of light. Of course, we had a different theory, etc. So we had this Einstein's theory of so Einstein's coefficients, etc. So we'll do that in the next class, probably. Okay. And yeah, so Einstein showed the same thing, basically, that the rate of transition from A to B and B to A will be in equilibrium, but from a completely different argument. Okay. And yeah, this is just a quantum mechanical calculation of the same this thing, etc. Okay. Okay. And then this is just the fact that I was mentioning that normally this is not the only story, so you'll also have to consider the thermal occupation factor. So generally I'll be dealing with ensemble of atoms, right? And in this ensemble of atoms, some will be in A state, some will be in B state, etc. And what will determine how many are in A, how many are in B is the Boltzmann factor, basically. Okay, so this will give you the ratio of how many atoms are in A and how many atoms are in B, etc. And depending on which is larger, so depending on the temperature, I can have more emission or I can have more this thing absorption, etc. Okay. And typically the rates will adjust with the Boltzmann factor, etc. So that in equilibrium I have neither emission nor absorption, right? So that's what equilibrium will be. Neither the number of photons is changing, neither the number of excited states or the ground state atoms are changing, basically. Okay. Okay. So that's the more generalized version of, if you like, the equilibrium condition. And if you have a population inversion, what I was talking about. Okay, suppose I started from 0 temperature, so all the atoms were in the A state, and then I kept shining light on it, etc., so that all the population of the A state ensemble of atoms goes to the B state of the ensemble of atoms, etc. Then the stimulated emission will become the dominant process, and this process of population inversion and stimulated emission, etc., is used in, for example, lasers or what is called a maser, etc. And this amplifies the incident radiation. So I'll shine a small light of frequency, and then because of stimulated emission, I'll get a lot of light which is coherent with it, the incident light, and lot higher in intensity, etc. So that's your laser. One of the principles of designing a laser, let's say, okay, which has been a remarkable invention, right? So most of the optics experiments currently will involve lasers in some form or the other, etc. Okay, so I'll stop here, and we will continue with some of this discussion in the next class, and we'll also set up the density matrix formulation for doing similar kind of calculations, basically. Okay, but this is roughly half of, so the conceptual idea, this is the bulk of the conceptual idea that we will need for these course, basically. Okay, so light matter interaction. Now, what is matter? So atoms, molecules, multi-electron atoms, more complicated molecules, quantum systems, quantum materials, condensed matter systems, etc. So that's just different, but the essential idea will remain, actually. Okay, that light will couple with matter by its momentum, so P minus EA, and I'll do a perturbation theory of that. So either I'll do a perturbation theory, I'll use some more complicated scheme to solve it, I'll calculate it numerically exactly, or I will do some other, diagrammatic perturbation theory like QED or something else, etc. And I can calculate terms either, within some or the other approximation, exactly. Okay, that's the main idea. And two of the major phenomena are these, basically: absorption of a single photon, emission of a single photon, and this will give rise to most of the experiment that we are going to discuss later in the course. Okay, so I'll stop here. Questions?
So is a laser or maser is the same thing? I mean, different, just another
Laser and maser are slightly different, so I'll tell you more about maser in the next class, actually. So I'll also have to look up. Okay. Yeah. So maser is not the same as laser. Okay. So let's see. So any of you know about maser a bit? Maybe somebody can help. No? Okay. So then I'll tell you about maser a bit more in the next class, actually. Okay. Questions? No more questions?
Sir,
Yeah.
no, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead. Shumanta. Yeah.
Principle of detail balance means simultaneously absorption and emission.
Yes. The rates are equal, basically. Yeah. Not simultaneous absorption.
Rates are equal, but
Yeah, rates are equal. Yeah.
but is it that one atom is absorbing and emitting simultaneously?
Oh,
It's
no,
not.
no, you have to be careful. Yeah, this is an ensemble of atom, actually. Yeah,
Okay.
this is an ensemble of atom, right? So I did calculation for one atom, right? But in one atom, see, in one atom, I will have only one act of absorption
Okay.
because of Pauli exclusion principle. No, my A level has only one electron. This was spinless fermions we started with, right? No spins also. So each level has only one species of fermion. And my B level, I can only excite that one fermion. That's it. No? So
Okay.
principle of detailed balance just says that the rate of transition A to B and B to A are equal. Now it will manifest when I consider an ensemble, a box of atoms.
Okay. Okay. Not for a single atom.
Not for a single atom. Yeah. No, for a single atom. So what we showed is the rate are equal. Right?
And sir, we first assumed that in first we assumed that there will be no simultaneous absorption and emission.
No, we
And
never assumed that.
you-
No, we did not assume that actually. That is not correct.
Means a single atom can't.
Yeah. So for a single
that was
atom,
assumed.
so we just calculated what is the probability, right? So I had this coefficient CB1. It had two terms basically. So I'll have absorption also. I will have emission also, right? And I did not assume that the probabilities are equal. I calculated and showed that they are equal.
But sir, actually I read branched in that they're written that the assumption is that one atom can't simultaneously.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
correct. So
that was
we
the
are
assumption.
we are mixing this historical context actually. Okay. So historically, principle of detailed balance came before this proof. Okay. So what I did, I did the proof and then I discussed principle of detailed balance, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can have some books where I'll discuss this principle of detailed balance first, that it comes sort of intuitively that in a normal atom in equilibrium, I'll have neither emission nor absorption, which implies that the rate of absorption and the rate of emission will be equal. And historically, that is what we call principle of detailed balance. Yeah.
And also, sir, in the here we have done the first order perturbation, so we got the dipole radiation.
Yeah.
If we do second order perturbation, that will be quadruple radiation. Or
Yes.
anything?
Correct. You will get a quadruple term. Correct. Absolutely. In fact,
Okay,
you
sir.
do higher order perturbation theory, you will get higher order moments. No doubt. Okay. Yeah, that's a very nice observation. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir,
Subhata,
can you
yeah.
just can you just once explain that why this is called stimulated emission?
Oh, stimulated because it did not happen naturally. I already had a light incident on it, right?
Yes.
So that's why it's called
So
stimulated.
basically, the electromagnetic field that we considered as the vector potential from the initial calculation. That thing.
Yeah. So that is what is
So there we
stimulated.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, we are getting from the CBT term. We had two terms, like one is for absorption and one is for
Yes.
emission.
Precisely.
And therefore calculated differently for the two.
Yeah, precisely. So both of them we can call stimulated absorption and stimulated emission. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I needed to shine light on it to make it absorb or to emit also.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. See, I mean, if you think a bit carefully about it, this is a bit nice thing about quantum mechanics. So I started with an initial condition where my electron was in A, right? And I calculated what is the probability that it will jump to B. Meaning I did my perturbation theory like that, etc. Right? But whatever solution I got contained the reverse solution also. That if I start from B and go to A, then that was also inbuilt into it. But I'm digressing, I guess, from your question. Okay, so more questions? Okay, so I'll make one final comment actually, okay? Something I'm actually working on in a research sense currently, actually, okay? So, yeah, so one of you made a comment that, this is dipole. Second order, I will get this quadrupole and so on, etc. Right? Okay. Now, if you come to quantum materials and study the same thing, etc., then there, in addition to the term that we saw here, we will get new kind of terms because the width of the electron wave function. Sorry, okay. So in solids, the electrons are actually electron wave packets. So they are never of a single momentum. They have a collection of momentum actually. No, so the wave packet, etc. So because of that, I get some other quantity in the calculation, which is called this Berry curvature or Berry connection. Okay. And there are a lot of terms. If you do the similar calculation there, you will find that there are a lot of terms which will arise from what is now called the Berry curvature dipole. Okay. Or Berry curvature quadrupole and things like that. Okay. So that's so there's a lot of currently active research in that direction, etc. And we are also doing some bit of that. Okay. So with that comment, I'll stop here. So that was just so that you can get excited about it a bit or think about it. And then we'll just stop here and then resume in the next class with some more discussion on this stimulated emission absorption, the Einstein's theory of this detailed balance condition, etc. And then we will go to density matrix formulation of the same thing, basically. Okay. And once that is complete, then we will go more details about, atoms actually, symmetries, levels, spins, spin splitting, hyperfine splitting, and all that things, basically. Okay. Okay. So if there are no other questions, let's stop here.